Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, the podcast where we bring you inside the world of joint ventures, strategic partnerships, and powerful collaborations. Each episode, you'll dive into conversations with top entrepreneurs, visionaries, and business leaders, unlocking the secrets to building profitable relationships that drive growth and success. Whether you're looking to expand your network, find new referral partners, or scale your business, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Welcome to Partnerships for Profit, presented by LeDuc Entertainment. Today, we are joined by Eric Morgan, who is the president and CEO of Roux Advertising. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Adrian. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, it's great having you here. Can we start off by you telling us a little bit about yourself and about Roux Advertising?
Sure. As you said, Eric Morgan, Roux Advertising. We're based in New Orleans. We're an ad agency. We've got clients around the country. Been doing this personally for probably about 31 or so years. The agency is going in our 28th year. And ultimately, we help brands move forward, both the people that work at the brand, marketers, and audiences as well, connecting them, bringing them to a point of, mutual beneficial kind of relationship where the brand is offering a product or service and the customer's clients get something out of it. And we do so through kind of a strategy first marketing approach. We do a lot of media planning and buying. That's my background, really, and the analytics that goes along with it. And it's been great. It's been very rewarding. We're pretty deep in a couple of categories that we love and we are able to make some great impact on.
Can you tell me a little bit about when business owners come to you, Roux Advertising, what are some of the problems and pain points that they're experiencing that you're helping them solve?
We call them gateways. It's how they came into our world. And there's a couple, and one of them we call brand realization, meaning they don't really have a grasp of who they are and what they stand for and how that really matters to people. They're ultimately their customers. And so we do this process where we go through and understand who the audience is, what the competitive landscape looks like, what the marketplace looks like, to determine what their brand really stands for and help them kind of solidify that. Another way is really through the campaign experience. And what that means is that a lot of our clients that have come to us have said, I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what media tactics I should be doing. Should I be doing streaming or social or billboards or television? I don't understand what the role of each one of those could be for my brand. And I think that we could be doing more. They could be doing more to help reach and connect with their prospective audience. And then a third one is really this growth multiplier. And that's really the ROI aspect of it. It's like, look, they're spending money on marketing, but they're not sure they're getting the most bang for their buck, and they need somebody to help kind of weed through how their clients are becoming their customers or becoming their customer, and replicate that and do more so that their dollar is being used in the most advantageous way.
What inspired you? You could be marketing anything, but what inspired you to focus on legal marketing?
Legal is probably the biggest area that we're there. We came across legal about 20 years ago, and we just realized that we had this knack for it. We understand the audience and the media channels that are out there, online and offline, and just know how to make the phone ring with qualified clients that'll end up at the law firm. And it just something we fell into, honestly. And when we realized, the strategies that we put together work really well, we just, kept pursuing, kept walking down that path and picked up more clients around the country to do it. It works well. We love it. We understand the marketing side of the law firm and legal marketing, the challenges. And so one thing that's been beneficial is being able to communicate and talk with the owners of the law firm, the managing partners, and explain marketing and explain it in a way that they get it and they understand how to prioritize marketing, what the steps are that get this program up and running. And they appreciate it, and it's been very beneficial. It's a very good, rewarding kind of relationship for us. I mean, we're helping clients grow, and that's always fun.
Now, I'm curious, you have 30 years of experience with media strategy and planning and implementation of these tools. How have you seen the marketing space evolve over the years, and where do you think the marketing space is heading?
You know, in my career, it's changed a lot because I got into the business right as the internet was coming online, you know,
Oh, yeah, right.
So, you know, in that case, very few people were talking about digital, talking about internet advertising. Very few were planning a budget around that. And it wasn't until a few years after I got kind of situated in the industry that it really kicked in. And so the conversation obviously has shifted dramatically because of the digital world, the online world.
Sure, with the emergence of social media as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, you know, who's in charge? Because in a lot of cases, the consumer is more in charge. And so that dynamic has really upended this whole industry in a good way. I mean, it's definitely manageable. The other thing that's changed dramatically is the level of conversation and the context of what we're discussing with our clients. Because when I got in, you know, we were talking ad speak, and it was, you know, reach and frequency and impressions and gross rating points and things like that, which, you know, they still have a role today. But what we're talking to our clients about is more business oriented. I mean, I end up being more of a business coach to our clients in some cases, obviously with a big marketing hat on. But it's more about looking at, you know, SWOT analysis, what's the opportunities that exist for the client, for their brand, and how can we take advantage of those, or what challenges exist and how do we overcome those challenges. And so my background is media planning and buying. You know, I grew up in the ad agency world, but the conversations are so different now, and it's less about advertising at first because there's so many things that need to be in place before we can get to the advertising conversation.
Right. Can you tell me a little bit about where you think, I mean, everything now, right? The big emerging technology right now that we're on the cusp of is AI. How do you think AI is going to impact the marketing space?
You know, I think it already is in some degree. You can see it when you pick up any social media platform. You can see content being produced by AI. You can see, you know, the comments being produced by bots and so forth. And so it's already impacting it. You know, to a degree, it's bad.
Right.
You know, a small portion, it's unfortunate. But I think what's going to happen is I'm hoping that AI helps elevate some of the conversations marketers have internally. It allows them to use AI as a sounding board to think about new positions, new angles. And quite frankly, it's a great education tool because it's almost like a sparring partner where you can sit there and put prompts into the systems and validate, you know, a theory or validate a conversation or a thought process from a marketing standpoint. Now, on a mechanical side, it absolutely will streamline some of the back of the house work that we do. You know, some heavy lifting where we're filling out forms, we're doing bid strategies, we're looking at analytics. So there's a lot of things there that will streamline the work that we have to do, which is great because it's less about doing the work and then more it allows us to put more energy into thinking about what the next strategy looks like and thinking about what observations we are extracting from the analytics and analysis that AI might be doing for us.
Well, and you mentioned, you know, the analytics and the analysis. I'm curious, what is some of the data that you're actually tracking to kind of, you know, realize, you know, if a marketing strategy was successful, if a marketing campaign was successful? What are some of the analytics and data that you're tracking there?
I mean, Our biggest thing is really just sales, some sort of conversion, whether that's, if you're selling cars, great. How many people showed up on the lot? If you're selling pizzas, how many pizzas were sold either on the phone or online? You mentioned legal, how many cases were signed up. And we do a lot of work in healthcare and a lot of work in tourism, hospitality work. And it's the conversion. It's that business metric that business is in, they're doing. And whatever it is, if it's how many heads are in beds, so to speak, in the hotel world, how many people took a trip to come visit Louisiana, that's ultimately the metric that we're trying to establish. And for each client, that's the most important thing. They're going to have their most important thing, that cost for acquiring that client. And then we look at it and say, what are all the secondary, tertiary things that are important, that almost are like leading indicators that allow us to derive that, yes, if we do these things on social media, if we do these things in the digital world, or if we do these things on television, then all of these things are predicted, and this sequence of events are going to happen, and X number of people are going to be purchasing the service or calling that law firm. So it's kind of each client has their own kind of metric that's important to them. But at the end of the day, it boils down to, what are they in business to do? They're in business to represent clients. Great. So how many clients did we get their law firm?
What are some of the common challenges that law firms are facing when it comes to marketing?
Probably no surprise to most people. It's market saturation. There's an enormous amount of competition out there. And so just being able to stand out and be distinctive is arguably the most important thing that they've got to wrestle with. And it's a fun exercise and a fun process to figure out what space a law firm can own, so that way they become distinctive and they do stand out. And it's a lot of soul searching and internally, looking at what their mission is. Another thing that really has been a challenge for them is this overwhelming array of advertising and media channels. They're calling us going, should I be on billboards or TV or paid search or social or and social Facebook, Instagram? Is it Twitter? Is it TikTok? Is TikTok going to be here tomorrow? It's all that stuff. And that's the fun part about it, is that we get to sit down and kind of, put them at ease and go, look, here, there's this method that goes on how to figure that out. And positioning is important. Strategy is important. And when you get those things, get them kind of aligned and you get them set, everything else starts falling into place.
Right.
Start knowing that I should be doing billboards. So the overwhelming array of choices out there is probably one of the big things that they're challenged with, they're faced with. And it's a fair statement. It is overwhelming.
Right. Well, I'd like to dive a little bit more into that. When a business comes to Roux Advertising, when a law firm comes to Roux Advertising and says, we need marketing, what does that discovery phase look like for you when you're trying to figure out what their advertising needs are, what their marketing needs are?
So we do look a lot internally to the brand to see where they are and where they need to go, because we've had instances where, and I call it, once you get everything running, you turn the faucet on and the phone starts ringing, the clients start showing up, that sometimes they're not quite prepared for additional clients. So one assessment is the house in order? Pretty straightforward.
Right.
And we go through a list of things that we want to discover. Another is an external assessment of what the landscape looks like. So we're auditing all the competitive sets, what they, who's screaming what, how, to what degree are they screaming? What do they stand for? Are they the hometown attorneys? Are they the hammer? Are they the what, you name it. So we get this external assessment of what that landscape, that competitive set looks like. We also look at, quite frankly, where their brand stands, meaning do people understand it? Because a lot of the things that go on from law firms is that they want to grow, and they want to grow not only within their market, but they want to add additional markets around their state. And so we have to assess the strategy from a brand acknowledgement, a brand perception and affinity standpoint. Meaning, do people know the brand? Great. If people already know the brand in the market, then the strategy might look a little different than if they're a law firm that's new, they want to start the practice, or it's a law firm that's entering a market that nobody understands or knows who they are. So the strategy is going to look completely different.
Right.
So we are gauging what that brand sentiment is, because we might have some work to do on the familiarity and the sentiment of the law firm's name within that market.
Right. So is it when law firms come to Roux Advertising, is it sort of a one size fits all approach to marketing, or is it highly custom tailored to the individual firm?
It has to be custom tailored. There's just no way around that, for a couple of reasons. One that I just mentioned, because
Right.
that brand perception, where are they on that? Do people know Nike versus some unknown type, shoe? Well, every law firm is going to be on that scale somewhere. And so if one day a law firm that comes to us is really high on that level, on that scale, that strategy is going to be different. The other thing that's going to really drive, this custom approach is that in the United States, there are 210 television markets, in Louisiana, New Orleans, Baton Rouge, Lafayette, Shreveport, and so forth. All right. New York is the biggest, and I can't remember who the smallest is. I think it's somewhere in Alaska. Each one of those is different. And while they are, it's easy to learn them and study them and come up with something. It's just that we have to come up with something that is specific to, Chicago, which is number 3 ranked market in the country, versus New Orleans, which is number 50 or 51. I can't remember, but, and so that customization is required, because the playing fields for a lawyer in Texas versus a lawyer in Idaho are always completely different.
Sure. And I'm curious, do you work with, and I know you work with some personal injury attorneys, but do you focus your marketing efforts only on one field of law, or do you focus across all fields of law?
We focus on a range in the legal area.
Do your strategies differ?
Yeah, they do. They do, because their audiences differ in a lot of cases. So obviously we do a lot of personal injury. And then we also work with workers' comp, Social Security, disability. There is some mass tort when in certain cases. We don't do a lot of it, but we do a fair amount. So it really varies, honestly. That it is different. Personal injury, and dependent upon what kind of personal injury, is it premise, is it motor vehicle accident, versus Social Security, disability, and so forth. And the interesting thing is that in a lot of cases, the law firms we work with, they're either they do Social Security, disability and not much else, and injury and not much else. I mean, they'll vary, maybe some workers' comp, but rarely historically have they kind of crossed when you talk about Social Security, disabilities specifically. Although we are starting to see some of the SSD clients lean into some of the PI world.
Right. Well, and you've worked with some pretty renowned brands. I mean, you've worked with Morris Bart, you've worked with Wayne Wright. Mm-hmm. How does your marketing strategy differ when you're working with an already well-established, well-known brand versus a law firm that's just getting started?
So going back to that, that acknowledgement that the brand is well-known, is really, it becomes more of top of mind awareness, and lower, if you think about the decision-making process or the purchase funnel, where top is more brand oriented, bottom is more conversion. If the brand is established more, then it's just that repeat, that top of mind awareness, and it's lower conversion standpoint, meaning people already understand the brand, they are educated about it, they have an affinity with it, they trust the brand, they know it, they trust it, and now it's just a matter of, God forbid they get into an accident, they actually need that legal representation. then at that point, we just want to make sure that the message is right there.
Right.
So it's a conversion aspect. For brands that are not known as well, or they're quite frankly brand new, because we have some upstart clients. The goal really is to balance that. We want the awareness to grow. We want people to become more and more familiar, but at the same time, we can appreciate that they also need clients to come through the door. So there's this, I won't call it a hybrid, but there's definitely this mixture of a strategy where we are trying to grow the brand and the affinity relationship out there, but at the same time, we are looking and seeing that spark. I call it a spark, where people are starting to take action, meaning they're calling the law firm. And so it won't be the scale of a Morris Bart. They won't get that kind of call volume, but there's enough call volume to justify the ROI. The cost per cases makes sense. And, I say, look, it's a business model that works. So let's get it established. Let's, fix it so that it's tweaked to perfection. And then I just say, let's turn that faucet on more and scale it.
Now, this might be a ridiculous or a loaded question, but I'm interested. How do you naturally integrate into the marketing a call to action?
Well, we take a couple of approaches, and the reality is that, if the brand is well known, you don't have to sell the brand. So you go straight to the call to action. If the brand is not known, you do need to have some creative that talks about the brand, educates the brand, educates that value, conveys that value proposition on why this firm or this hospital or whatever the client may be makes sense and is right and fulfills a need within the customer base. And so once you've done that job, then you can start, slipping in that call to action, especially in the legal space where there's, a little bit of a sense of urgency. Obviously, people are hurt and injured. They want to get their lives back on track. So, it's a pretty delicate balance, honestly, especially if it's a new firm that people don't know of and aren't aware of, on when you can start slipping in that call to action.
Right. Well, now this might be another ridiculous question, but again, I'm very interested because I think it's interesting. Have you ever worked with a brand where there was severe negative public perception? Maybe there was a recent scandal or something like BP, where there was an oil spill and all of a sudden they need really good PR and really good marketing to get a better public perception. And if so, how have you handled that?
To be honest, if they're up the creek as far as BP was, I would probably turn it over to a good friend of mine, Mark Earhart. We don't normally work with people that have that level of a problem or
right
a word. If it's something minor or simple, we can work with them to help them overcome that. If it was, just a poor review because, the customer didn't feel like they got, treated fairly, or they didn't get the settlement that they like, we'll work with those kind of firms. But there is a chemistry test that we go through with them. Right. Honestly, we want to make sure that this is a brand, because look, we love what we do. We're excited about doing it. Obviously, we're entering I'm entering, I'm in my, 30 something year of doing it. And we want to make sure that the companies, the brands that we work with align with our core values, honestly. And, and so we do go through a vetting process. I mean, we have a laundry list of questions during that initial discovery phase to kind of let us peek into the soul of the people and of the people that we be working with, and validate that these are people that we want to help, because we can help them, and we've demonstrated that we can help. And we just want to make sure that, one, they're the people that it'll be enjoyable to work with, and we can find some common ground, and we can make a difference in their business.
Yeah. And there now we've talked a little bit about what, good marketing looks like, but is there maybe an example that you could share with us of what does bad marketing look like and what are some of the negative impacts from poor marketing?
I won't name any names, but the biggest challenge that we see, and we end up having a reel our clients back in, is that, and we all have it. Everybody has it in their personal and probably professional lives. Is the shiny object syndrome, meaning
Right.
they see their competitors as marketers. They see their competitors doing something, a tactic. They're advertising on buses, or they're advertising on during the football game or whatever. They automatically want to jump and do that because their competitors are doing it.
Right.
And there's two things going on here, really, is that one, you're following somebody else. And if you follow somebody, you'll never win. And odds are that strategy is meant for that competitor, and it might not be right for you. So you need to be true and understand what you stand for, what your strategy is, and whether that is a right fit or not. That's the first thing. The second thing with this shiny object syndrome is that people take their precious marketing dollars and they end up spreading it too thin, because they're doing this and then they're doing that and they're jumping on all these wagons and they're like, oh, I got to be over here. Before you know it, they're so scattered that they're really not doing anything well.
Right.
And so that's really, if you were to ask me about bad marketing, it's following somebody else, doing it because somebody else is doing it, and then also just spreading your marketing too thin. And again, both of those things really fall back to strategy.
Right. Can you tell me how marketing for law firms differs from other areas of marketing? What is unique? And what is a unique kind of strategy, or what is different about marketing for law firms versus, say, marketing for McDonald's?
It's interesting because the media buying, the actual act of negotiating and buying, we buy time and space, time on TV, radio, and space on websites or magazines or billboards. The way we negotiate it, the way it's tracked, the way it's reported, and quite frankly, the way it's planned out in advance of all the buying, is completely different than most other industries.
Sure.
I grew up in the ad agency world, and there were a lot of terms and there's a lot of metrics and measurements on planning out media, whether it's car dealerships or, retail goods or food or healthcare, whatever. Well, the legal industry is completely different. They've got different methodologies, different formulas that get us to a very sound media buy. And I think that's the biggest challenge, is that one, it's completely different. And I tell people, when we're hiring new buyers to come on staff, I'm like, yeah, you've been buying for that car dealership group, or, you've been buying for Nike or whoever. This is a whole different monster. It is a different monster. And that's fine, once you learn it and figure it out, but there's a different formula, there's a different process and pattern, and it's cool and interesting, and it works. We've been successful in growing firms, but it takes a learning curve to get through.
Yeah. When you think back, you've been doing this, like you mentioned, 30 years in this space. When you think back on your years doing this and in your all that time, can you tell me, when you think back on it, is there a client, a business, a law firm that you really saw a positive transformation in as a result of Roux Advertising and your help and guidance?
Yeah, there's a lot of them. We've got testimonials. We've been fortunate. We work with great brands, and we've been able to make an impact. And that's pretty much what our mission is to produce outstanding impact. And there's, Shelley Leak, we've been working with her for 13 years, I think. And when she came to us, she was two or three attorneys, and now they're 38 attorneys. And I'm not going to say all of it is attributable to us, but we definitely had a hand in that. And, there's a lot of things that fell into place, but the marketing is definitely part of that growth. And, we're super proud of it. And there's a lot of that, we can see very specifics where we make some changes and tweaks. We see the call volume go up. We put some new creative in rotation. We see, if it's the right creative, it's the right time and so forth, that the call volume goes up. So there's a lot. And that's the beauty of it, is that,
Right.
we're in business to help move brands forward. And we've been very successful at it. We know how to do it and we enjoy it. I mean, that's why I jump out of bed in the morning.
Well, Eric, this has been an absolutely awesome conversation. If anybody out there listening could use your help, could use the help of Roux Advertising, where can the people find you?
Start off at our website, rouxadvertising.com, ROUX advertising.com. I'm Eric at rouxadvertising.com. We're on all the usual social media platforms and LinkedIn. So track us down and give us a call. Happy to talk. I tell people, call me all the time. I'll talk and you can pick my brain.
Well, Eric, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been great.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. This is fun.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been Partnerships for Profit, presented by LeDuc Entertainment. Eric, thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Partnerships for Profit. We hope you've gained valuable insights on how to form profitable partnerships and take your business to the next level. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Got a partnership story to share or someone you'd like to see featured on the show? Reach out to us. Until next time, keep building those partnerships for profit.